Yeah. Hello and welcome. We're live on Wednesday, the 3rd of June. Ha ha! It's my birthday.
Happy birthday!
Thank you to the audience. Yeah, a day after this man's birthday. Happy birthday! Thank you. It's Sylph, Dominic, Hawkins coming to you live from Rainy Spirit Dojo. And if you haven't noticed, today there is an audience. So some restrictions have changed in the gatherings of people. And this isn't a class of sports. This is a meditation session. So we're going to get away with that. Now, we're just going to kick on as normal. We might be doing a little bit of stand-up stuff tonight, but we're going to start. Let's set this really well. All right. So, I'll sit here. How's that? Yeah, that's right. 4 square meters. It's more like, I don't know if they can hear me. Thumbs up if you can hear me down there in internet land. I have really enjoyed this whole thing. This has been a lot of fun the last 3 months. All right. So, as you just settle in, it doesn't matter if you're sitting or standing or lying down or working. Breathing through your nose, down into your belly. Filling up your belly with breath. Breathing out through the mouth. And you just allow the breath to soften the physical shape. Breathing in through the nose. Out through the mouth. And the tongue just rests on the top of the mouth, behind the top 2 front teeth. As you breathe in and out, your belly fills with breath, stretching the muscles around your ribs, your diaphragm, muscles around your kidneys. It's the inward breath that takes effort and focus and decision. And the outward breath is just a natural exhalation, the rebalancing from the tension in the diaphragm. If the breath shapes your shoulders, changes the shape of your chest, your trunk and the torso, just allow the shape to remain after the outward breath. There's no need to re-posture yourself under some picture of what you think would look better. Just breathe in and out. Let yourself just look really fat and relaxed. Big bellies. Soften the muscles on the front of the abdomen, if you have any muscles there. And let's take our attention to the sounds that we can hear. Let's begin the sounds far away, outside this space. And the sounds you can hear very close. The sounds within a meter of your body. Even closer, the sound of your own breath. And just softening your attention to the sounds you can hear. Relax the breathing. Now we're going to take our attention to the smells, sense of smell in the surrounding space. On the inward breath, breathing in and out, in through the nose. Out through the mouth. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. What can you smell? And every time we breathe in and out, smelling, increasing the detail of the smells available, or of our reception of the smells available. There are subtleties to the smell. Even fresh air, clear air, it has a certain texture to the smell. As we move on to the focus of taste, things that we can taste, breathing in through the nose, holding the breath for 2 or 3 seconds, and then an outward breath. Breathing in, holding, tasting, observing taste, and breathing out, breathing in, holding, tasting, observe the taste all on the inside of the mouth, back the throat if you're able to, and out. 3 more breaths, go in our own time. Notice how the taste sensation requires some movement of breath. The exhalation happens as you're attempting to taste. Moving on to the focus of sight. So eyes open or closed. If your eyes are open, just softly fading out into the background shapes, the colours. Don't see the detail, just see geometry and colour, macro objects. And just do your best to stare forward into oblivion and focus intently on the edge of your peripheral vision. If you want to have your eyes closed, then you're observing the colours behind the eyelids from the light in the surrounding space, the phosphors and the projections of visions on the back of the eyelids with the eyes closed. 5 breaths, breathing in and out to the mouth. Don't look for something in particular, just be keenly aware. Just watch if anything happens, anything occurs to you. Keep focused on the sight. One more big breath. And then soften the focus on the vision. And we'll travel to the fifth sense, to the tactile sensation. So the experience of body weight. We start with this. There's lots of tactile observation. The temperature of the air against the skin, the movement of drafts in the air, and the hairs on the skin. But we're going to look at the pressure of the body where it meets the ground. Nice and simple. So I'm in Seiza, I can feel pressure under my knees, and I'm up on my toes. I'm in a kneeling Seiza. So that's the most obvious place where the experience of pressure of my body weight meeting the ground. If you're standing, it will be on your feet, the heels, the ball of the feet, the outside of the arch, the toe pads. If you're lying down, maybe the back of the hips, the back of the shoulder blades, some of the spine, the back of the neck, back of the head, maybe the feet, maybe the legs. You decide where the main points of pressure are, where your body meets the ground. We're just going to focus on that experience of that pressure and watch if it divides into other further experiences. 5 breaths, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Hopefully by now, session 10. It should be very quick for you to begin experiencing the increasing detail, the division of sensation into sub-experiences. Pressure should divide almost immediately into at least 2 other experiences that make up pressure. In through the nose, down into the belly, stretching the ribs. Out through the mouth. And just relaxing the attention to the sensation. If your eyes are closed, just opening them softly and just returning to the space and current time. So we've walked through our usual 5, just our 5 sense observations. Nothing fancy. Now we're going to go back and we're going to do it again, and this time in our activity we're going to hone in our position of observation to the actual body organ itself. So rather than listening to the sounds of the cars in the distance, or to the sound of my breathing but on the outside of my body, I'm now going to be listening to the sound of my ears listening. It's fascinating fun. This is very basic. This is like step 2 of basic meditation. So we're just returning to this after all this time. Now you'll get a lot out of this. So I'm probably only going to give you 2 breaths, 3 at most, to do this activity. Your eyes open or closed, settling in. We'll start at the audible sense again, the sense of hearing. Breathing through your nose, down into your belly. I want you to listen to the sounds, but right at the point of hearing. As if you're listening to the very skin of the eardrum. Devote half your attention to breathing, the other half to that exact place of observation, right on the eardrum. You're listening to yourself listen. One more breath. Fun activity. We're going to move to now the sense of smell, olfactory. So as you're breathing in, I want you to smell, but I don't want you to smell the smells in the room. I want you to smell the inner lining of the nostrils itself, and maybe the sense of smell as you're breathing. So the whole inside of the nose is what you're smelling. Now moving our focus to taste. We're going to be tasting the actual taste of the tongue. The taste buds on the tongue, the back of the tongue. As you're breathing in, you can hold your breath for 2 seconds in the middle again, if you'd like. Breathing in through the nose. And tasting the actual taste of the tongue, not the taste of the mouth itself. Keep tasting in the exhalation all the way out. And then the next breath. And tasting the actual tongue. Now moving on to sight. Look at vision. Eyes open or closed. If your eyes are closed, you're going to find this easier. If you're up for a challenge, you're welcome to open them. So now, if your eyes are open and you're staring into oblivion, rather than focusing on the peripheral vision, I want you to look at the lenses of your eyes from the inside. You're going to look, aiming to look at the actual transparency of the tissue of your eye. If your eyes are closed, you're looking at the inside of the eyelids, not at the pictures and the visions of projections. But I want you to look at the inside of the eyelid, or eyes open, look at the tissue of the eye. This one's a lot of fun. We'll take a couple of breaths, 3 or 4 breaths, breathing in. And out through the mouth. And just softening your focus. And now taking our attention to physicality, physical form, tactile sense. I want you to pick a very specific part of the body that is experiencing the pressure of the body weight meeting the ground. It's relevant what part you pick. So I'm sitting in seiza, I'm flat down in seiza, I've got pressure on the fronts of my knees, tops of my feet, ankles, a little bit on my shin. I'm going to pick one area of that group. And I'm going to focus focus there. And rather than observing the texture of the pressure, my goal will be to observe mentally the actual skin at the point of pressure where it meets the ground. So if you're at home, if you're lying down or sitting in a chair or on the ground, you're going to have to decide what part of the body you would like to focus on. And your goal is not the feeling of pressure, but the actual tissue that is receiving or sending those pressure signals rather. We'll take 5 breaths for this one, breathing in. Do your best with your mind to really penetrate beyond the texture of the feeling into the tissue itself. One more full breath. And just soften the focus of the mind. Relax the body. So hopefully you were able to find in the second set of those 5 senses when we ran through that experience, that activity, a very different kind of experience. Rather than being aware of the surroundings, rather than being very conscious, developing a mind, like a mental map, a 3D image of objects and sounds and free space and positions and locations and the breath and the temperature, all that information is less obvious to you. And what you find instead, what I have always found when I'm doing that experience, really listening at the point of hearing, listening at my eardrums, for want of a better metaphor, is almost like, ironically, a gap or a disconnection between my experience of listening and the sounds that I'm hearing. No longer, when I do that activity, I no longer feel like I am the sounds that I'm hearing. I feel like there's sounds out there, and there's this almost, I wouldn't say a numbness, but like an inconceivable ringing, a ringing without any volume. And so too the same, I find when I smell, it's the texture of the nostrils that I experience. There's almost like a crystalline kind of geometry that smell takes on. I no longer have the ability to smell the actual smells in the room. Tasting the tongue itself and the taste buds on the tongue, I no longer taste any of the dinner from an hour ago or the cup of tea from earlier. I experience this curious texture of the tongue. The vision, if you were game enough to have your eyes open, it's very hard. Looking through the eyes at the tissue of the eye, probably an impossible task, but it has this really odd sense of sitting you back far away from the surrounding environment, rather than looking at things and having it brought forward, seeing things but through the tissue of the eye, looking at the tissue of the eye, or aiming to, causes this distancing effect. It's this kind of depth experience. And that experience of looking at the actual tissue creates a sense of separation, I find, between skin, the tissue itself, where it meets the ground, and the experience of the pressure. They become different processes. One becomes a flow on of the other. So we're going to take a pause of that for a second. Put that over there in a box. Those are useful. We go back to everything that I've said the last 10 weeks, I think I've said it most of the video, that meditation in itself is not a complicated activity. The dedication to reaching for certain experiences can be mind-numbingly difficult, but not because the activity is hard. In the same way that shoveling a hole is not a complicated activity. It's a repetitious, very simple activity. But that doesn't mean that it's effortless. It doesn't mean that it requires no dedication to the task. It requires immense focus on the task and decision to keep going beyond difficulty. So in meditations like this, the only requirement is curiosity, to reach for, it's in your experiment, the answers to your questions. If the question is, what can I smell? You don't go, oh yeah, and then that's the end of that question. You want to reach out, what is the absolute intricate detail, what's the depth of the detail of what I can smell? And your meditations, you'll have completed your meditation when you've found that point. So with your hearing, it says, what is the finest moment that I can hear, or the finest, and the language is not right, but what is the finest grain that I can hear? And you just keep extending, you keep reaching out and extending your observation of hearing out and out and out and out and out, and deeper and deeper, and it divides and deeper. And your meditations don't conclude. You haven't ticked off meditation in your life until you've reached that ended point. And you do the same for all 5 of the senses. And that's all you'd have to do. Spend a whole life doing that, and you'd be up there in the pinnacle of meditation mastery. There's a lot of other things that can go on in meditation, but meditation of itself is very, very simple. And so I want to draw a distinction again. I said this the last few weeks. There's a very large distinction between meditation and visualization, and the two of them get lumped together in a kind of postmodernism. But while visualizations can be definitely a form of meditation, meditation itself is not visualization. The two are actually contradictory. The outcomes of the two are contradictory. The goals of the two are. If your interest in your meditation is the observation, sense observation of the experiences that are happening at this moment, then your visualization techniques are your attempt to experience things that are happening in the future or in the past. So you are attempting to overlay on top of your experience of the surroundings experiences you think you might have in an imagined world, or experiences that you might have had 4 years ago, or 200 years ago, or 10,000 years ago, or the experiences that you could conjure you might have if you were floating in space and you were coloured pink and the year was 7,400 AD. So those purposes are at odds with observing the experiences that are available to you here. And they can be at odds, and they can be paradoxically at odds. And they can both be incredibly useful, but don't confuse the two. They're very different things. So when we sit down to really engage in meditation, generally what we're aiming to do is just re-associate and what's the word? I'll just say re-associate, reconnect perhaps. It's very cheesy. Your mental, or recalibrate your mental mindscape and your experiences and the map you're forming in your mind of your current position in space and time, using the reference of all other objects and all other rhythms and processes in the universe to give you that experience. And that's how you can position yourself in space and time. And in a recording of that, if you sit down and you do that meditation every day, or 1 once a week or once a month or only every year at Christmas or whatever it is, you'll have bookmarks in your memories of your positioned, your observation of your position moving through time and space. Even though you might be in the same spot, there's a feeling of motion, there's a feeling of difference. How is it that you gain a sense of that which you are right now, the experience of that which is you here, different from that which was you when you were 5 years old? There is a feeling of distance between the two, and it's not a feeling of spatial distance as such. You can't get a ruler and measure the meters of distance between you aged 5 and you aged now. You can measure a progression of time cycles, of Earth rotating around the sun cycles. But if you lose that reference, if you are not rotating around the sun, and if a single day hasn't passed in the universe since the beginning of the universe, then what's the reference if there isn't a cyclic time reference? But there is still this sense, and it's just a tangible sense that we have as humans. I don't know about other animals, I have to ask them, of something being far away, a memory or an experience being recent or very far or so far into the past that it doesn't even, when you consider and you conjure the visualizations of that past experience, and then you relate it to that which is you now, they don't even feel like the same person. You experience the gap, and that can be quite a lovely experience. It can be an experience that helps you kind of take stock of just where you are in each moment, and then relax. And you remember that you're not where you were last week, and you're not where you were a month ago, for good or bad. You're not where you were a year ago, or 5 years ago, and you're not where you were 20 years ago. You're somewhere different. And so when times are difficult, or when things are hard, then that should give you some sense of comfort, that there's a high chance that wherever you are now, you won't be there tomorrow, or you'll be there less, or you'll be there differently, and you'll be somewhere else in a week, and you'll be somewhere else in a month, and in 10 years you'll be somewhere else so differently that looking back on this now will seem the same as if you now look back 10 years ago and attempt to reach into that experience. This is the benefits of meditation. I've been keeping these videos very PG on purpose. I've been keeping these videos very just simple and structured with these activities on purpose, and not launching off into too much else. That's the too much else is for the black belt grades. I get to study that in class. Yeah. But these public videos for everyone, this type of meditation, this type of practice is all that you require for the first 5 years of your study with Hoshinden. That's all you have to do. You don't have to be doing backflips over anything. Just practicing this, and it will bring you to the point where you're ready then in your black belt grades to take it further in the way that we're able to, with really enjoyable control of visualization techniques, and really fun opportunity to observe physical sensation all around the body in different ways, and how it interacts with other sensations, with the experiences of other people, or the ground, or the light, or the breath, or the air, and those kinds of experiences. So we've got about 20 minutes left. What we're going to do is we're going to get up into a standing meditation. Everyone's fast asleep on the ground. Pick yourselves up off the ground. And I have to move back into shot. Just. And we're done. Okay. So we're going to do a little bit of just basic breath work. I wouldn't even call it chisel. I'd be criticized. Okay. So starting off. When you take your feet shoulder width apart, they sit under your shoulders. That's what they call shoulder width. Otherwise we call something else. And I want you to just soften your knees. So your legs are straight, but they're not locked. They're just soft. You can see on the side, my legs aren't locked out, they're just soft. There's a slight, I don't know if you can see anything, there's a slight relaxation to my knee. And we're going to start with my hand on my belly, slow, hara, tantien. And as we breathe in, all I'm going to focus on is the experience of my fingertips. Thumb, pointer fingers, middle fingers, ring fingers, pinky fingers. And that's all I'm interested in as I breathe in and out, in through the nose, down into the belly. You can have your eyes open or closed. I want you to be focusing on the experience of sensation, nervous system sensation of your fingertips. All 10 fingers if you have all 10 fingers. And we'll start simple and I'll make this progressively more difficult. Focusing on the fingertips. Now I want you to slightly bend your knees more. So they may be just a quarter or an eighth bend. Keep focusing on the fingertips. And your job here really is to separate the experience of the sensation of the fingertips from the sensation of what the fingertips are touching. You have to isolate the observation of the fingertips themselves from the texture of the shirt or the clothing or the experience of the skin on your belly receiving the pressure of the fingertips. All of that is separate, and your job is to focus on the sensation in the fingertips, with the knees slightly bent. And walk through each fingertip. You should be able to feel a buzzing, maybe the experience of life, sensation of blood flow in the fingers. Bending the knees a little bit more. So now I've actually got some warming tension going on in my legs. My quadriceps are working to hold me at this shape. My calves engaged, holding me at this shape. Meanwhile, I'm focusing on the fingertips. Each fingertip, I should be able to walk through from the thumb on the left hand to the pinky, and the thumb on the right hand to the pinky, and I should be able to just highlight and experience the sensation in each fingertip one by one by one. that yet, go back to session 3 or 4 of these videos and then do more practice. And use your mind to isolate the fingertip experience from the textural feeling of the clothing or the belly, or even the temperature between your skin and the air. Now when you take your attention down into your feet, and we're going to do the same thing with the toes. Isolating the experience of each toe, the nervous system sensation of the toe, separate from the pressure on the ground, or the texture of any socks or shoes, or temperature. You should be able to walk through each toe one by one. As you're breathing, knees are quarter bent. Once you've finished looking at each of the toes, experiencing sensations of the toe, I want you to take your mind as if it's like a pencil and draw a line and just observe tactile sensation all the way up from the large toe, up over the top of the feet, the ankles, up through the shins, the knees, the upper legs, the hips, all the way up into your face. You can take a few breaths to do that if you like. You slowly trace along your body, but using your mind, peer and penetrate into the sensation observation at each point if possible. How much detail and resolution can you get out of this activity? Can you feel just the skin, or can you experience the bone as well? Tendons. And just walk your observation up your body, up into your face, anywhere that you choose in your face. Once you've settled somewhere, a point of focus in your face, I want you to now draw 2 lines simultaneously, both sides of the body, up over the back of the ears and the earlobes, and then down, just like this pencil line of observation, down the sides of the neck, and then down the sides of the arm, down into past each elbow and hand, and then down the body from the belly, down through the outside of each leg to the heel of each foot. This is hard. You have to observe 2 points of sensation observation at the same time. from the heels, let's slowly wander observation along the bottom of the foot out towards the toes. Sometimes this can even feel ticklish. To the toes, and then let's do the reverse. Back through the bottom of the foot to the heel, up the outside of the legs, to the belly, up the outside of the arms, and back up, back of the ears into the face in your own time. Breathing. Now once you've returned up to the face, we're going to take a big breath in and out. Filling the belly with breath each time. And on the outward breath, as you breathe out, you're going to lift the pelvic floor all of a sudden. It's tingling up the back of the spine. Breathing out, and then you lift the pelvic floor up. Hopefully you get this wave sensation up your back, and up to the back of the neck, the skull, up into the skull, and it will attenuate the different points, different parts of the skull for you. We're going to go again, so you're breathing down into your belly. Knees bent, breathing out, and almost at the end of the breath, the pelvic floor lifts. One more breath. And just out for normal. And then in. And then out. And lift at the end of the breath. Lifting the pelvic floor again. And this wave up the back and the spine. It's tingling right up in the back of the neck, into the head, into the skull. And it might progress over the head and into some part of the face, maybe the brow, the eyes themselves. Sometimes you get little flashes of projected vision, the eyes, back of the eyelids. You go further down, the nose, the bridge of the nose, top of the inside of the palate, where the tongue is resting, behind the top two front teeth, down through the tongue, down through the throat, and then descend down through the belly, back down into the perineum and the base of the body, the trunk. And just relaxing. Let go of your hands, soften your eyes, check out your body. Click, click, click. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Oh. All right, we've got a few minutes left. Dialogue. So, Hoshinden is simply, it's nothing more than my personal interpretation of the Hoshin root that I study. And after my formal study with my Hoshinden Jutaijutsu teachers had finished, then the continuation of my study of Glenn Morris's work, the founder of Hoshinden in America, and then the pulling together of other study, lots of other forms of Qigong and other forms of breath work, bone breathing and marrow washing from Qigong. And Hoshinden, the goal for the meditations, for this art, is really heightened observation of the world around us. So it's already there, but it's allowing us to really engage, because it's about satisfaction, really satisfactory relationship. The whole art is about relationships. Relationship primarily with ourselves through the practice, through the art, and our relationship that we build with other humans, and how that reflects and builds on our relationship with ourselves, and vice versa. It's a constantly moving ocean between two shores. But beyond the interaction of us and them and self and other, the interest in the art also reaches beyond into this paradoxical sense of the relationship of just that which is going on. In the same way that when I really listen to the sounds around me, it becomes very difficult to separate I from the sounds. In order to do that, I have to stop listening to the sounds, and I have to start compartmentalizing and identifying the sounds mentally. When I'm just really listening to the sounds, there can't be a distinction between the sounds and that which is I. When I'm lying in the sunshine, and I know the language is messy, that experience of the warmth of the sun on my skin, that beautiful kind of infrared warmth. Well, at that moment, the beautiful satisfaction of that experience comes in just kind of joining with the sun in that moment. And stepping back mentally and compartmentalizing the sun as an object, the transmission of waves, the receiving of waves, the movement of water molecules as heat, and the observation of that heat, that isolates my experience from those things. They become like on a petri dish in a scientific lab, and I'm observing. I'm not the things I'm moving around. And that's very useful, but that's not where we find great satisfaction. As humans, we seem to find satisfaction and a deep sense of relief almost in our involvement in the human experience, not in our separatization. Just make up words on the spot. We don't find great satisfaction in our separateness from our experiences. Yeah? We find kind of mental neurosis there. But we do find a lot of just mental health and wellness and relief and just normality when we are just involved in our human experiences and our human lives. Not to say that we must throw ourselves to the wolves of every drama and emotion that changes, but when you go outside and you smell the air, really smell the air. Don't be smelling the air, compartmentalizing it into categories, because you're not smelling the air then, you're just dissecting the experience. But you want to make sure that for a moment, you and the air have become the same. And then the experience of smell is satisfying. When you eat dinner, I think I set this task a week ago maybe for you. When you eat breakfast, or whatever your next meal will be, don't just eat the food. Really taste, explore the sensation of taste of the food. moment by moment by moment. When you're looking, even if it's just at something mundane, behind the iPad is just a wall. It's a concrete wall. But I can still look, and within that looking, I can experience a merging, a connection of my sense of what it is I'm looking at. It's not just the wall. There's something. There's an evocation of experience there. When I'm experiencing tactile sensation. So sitting, lying down, standing up. Any time where gravity has caused you to have an experience with the ground. So this don't use this for all those other times on Earth. Just a little joke. Yeah. Any time that you're experiencing your body interacting with any other material object, really dwell in the experience at that point. Really feel that. Don't just write it off. Don't just compartmentalize it into another subsection of sensation. You can if you want to observe it in meditation, but that's not how you want to walk around and live your life. You don't want to be interacting with other humans by observing them and categorizing them. If you do, you'll probably have really good categories, but you won't have any friends. You'll have a fantastic list of pros and cons, but you won't have any lovers or family. There'll be no one that you'll have connected to, because you can't hold yourself outside of the experience and critique and categorize and observe while at the same time be kind of adrift in the experience or being like a sponge in the ocean and soaking up the experience. So good luck. I hope that it's been an enjoyable session. Thank you to my audience for this session, and happy birthday, Sensei, again, lots of fun. Happy birthday to me. And this Friday, keep an eye on the Facebook page. Got a really good interview that's going up. Some things have been changing in the Australian Victorian government's stances in terms of the restrictions for the current situation. So I will be in touch on the Facebook page if you're not watching this in the future. Keep an eye on things. I'll provide some information about how we're going to start returning to this, pick up the momentum of our dojo experience. Lots of love. Have an awesome night, and I'll see you Friday. Bye.